Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. We are just 2 days away from the launch of the CDL for 2023, and Dashy has seemingly responded to some of the criticism that OpTic have received for their practice results the last few weeks of Modern Warfare 2, saying, look, don't worry about practice, wait until the real matches begin. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it, very much intrigued your thoughts, all this stuff in the comment section below. Switch those around today for some reason. Here we go then, the Call of Duty League, the team packs are here. Now one of these is, well actually two of these are not like the others. So, well, I guess I'll bring the image up on screen for you guys. So here we go. These are the 12 team packs now available in the game. Back in the good old days in Black Ops 3, you'd pay like $10 and you'd get every single team pack from the North American region. And you could pay another $10 to get all the team packs from Europe and then the APAC League as well as it used to be back in the day. And those camos on the weapons were way better than what we get nowadays anyway. Now you have to pay $10 per team. So, you know, times have moved on. But anyway, the Thieves one will stand out here, just to note, because obviously you've got the black setup. It's a really nice skin, but this has been considered to offer a competitive advantage, right? Because look, if you're running around with these other camos, you're going to be pretty easy to see. Whereas this full black version arguably, you know, has its own benefits, let's say. So yeah, people were talking about this and wondering whether this is you know, fair or not really, because the teams will basically, I think the way they do it in the CDL or have done the last few years, the teams don't have to actually equip their own camo, but you guys remember, like, they actually wear these outfits in the game, right? When you watch it from like a third person view, or even when you're just on board with someone and you can see them, you know, having a gunfight with someone else, they're usually wearing the skin of their team. Now, I don't believe this actually appears when the players are playing. It's like a post-production thing that somehow they've managed to make it work so that we can see the skins on broadcast, but the players are actually using default stuff. So I don't think this is going to give any competitive advantage to LA Thieves in the actual game itself, but you know, it obviously is worthy of note. So as Clayster says right here, you know, Vegas Legion, their camo, their skin, all this type of stuff, and honestly, it's not the worst, I think, of the bunch, but it is twice the price. And we'll see that too in a second for some reason or another. And yes, here we go. The Thieves skin is looking rather too good right now. So, you know, yeah, even as Octane goes on to say, this does offer some sort of competitive advantage. Make sure you guys head to the store, pick up the only skin that gives you this advantage. So probably they are doing rather better than others on the sale so far. And I'm sure that our teams might not be so happy about that. But, you know, still, it's just the color scheme for Thieves. It just happens to be a better one for a few reasons. And as Slasher says, accuracy, make sure they take it off. So, you know, he doesn't want these guys running these, you know, these skins in practice. He wants them to use default stuff or whatever. But as I say, in the actual game state, when they're on their official accounts, pretty sure they don't use them anyway. It's just post-production stuff. So Thieves shouldn't have any advantage. But honestly, who knows with Joe Seacott and the boys. And even just this to note on CMG, immediately after release, the LA Thieves CDL skin has been banned from all the matches. So you can't use it anymore, unfortunately. But still kind of interesting. Now, this to me was even funnier. So all these camo packs are $9.99, but for some reason the Vegas Legion camo pack is $19.99. Now this seems to be a glitch, unintentional, you would imagine, but it's just funny that of all the teams that this glitch, what we believe is a glitch, happened to, it's Vegas Legion, because these guys obviously as an organization are relatively well known for not necessarily being the biggest money spenders. We know they've been basically like, well, lowballing their players on minimum salaries the last several years. This year we think it might be a slightly different story. We think the players might be getting paid a bit more than a minimum, but we still don't really know, to be perfectly honest. And yeah, $19.99 here, so twice the price of the other teams. And as Crone says, when you start paying players more than minimum wage, you have to charge extra for your team pack. So yeah, I don't know. Clay was looking at this thinking, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a glitch. I'm not really sure, to be honest, what's going on. But yeah, look, I guess they put a 1 in accidentally, or maybe they didn't, and Vegas were like, no, we want to charge that, because everyone, obviously Vegas Legion is the most attractive team pack, the one that everybody wants. So you know, understandably they're going to charge twice the price. So I'm imagining this is going to be fixed in due course, but still another bit of drama really in the CDL. This is OpTic's one, for example. Now I thought that we were going to get the OpTic jersey, right? So this is the in-game stuff, but the real life jerseys have been being released over the last couple of weeks or so, and I thought OpTic's one was going to come out yesterday. We haven't seen it yet, but as they actually say in this tweet, stay tuned for what's to come at Trust. So I thought maybe later in the day, but maybe today, it's going to be later today sometime, when the actual CDL jersey is going to arrive. OpTic always like to big up their jerseys. Sometimes they deliver, sometimes they don't, so we'll see if it's actually any good. But the other teams have generally done a good job, with the exception of a few, and you know, we'll see what OpTic get up to today, I think, because realistically, it's only today and then tomorrow, where Vegas are probably going to do theirs on Thursday, and then the matches start on Friday. We're actually going to get to see the jerseys, I guess, even though it's online, so maybe they don't have to wear them from their facility. But yeah, that's more than likely going to be the situation over the coming days. Let's talk about about OpTic then, right? Because an interesting situation for OpTic. Usually they're right up there with the best teams at the start of the games. Makes sense. Why that would be the case with the talent they have and have had historically as well. But the start of this game has not been so kind to them so far. There's been some questions raised about various, well, things really going on within their camp and whether they can deliver the goods this season compared to how they have done at start of seasons previously. And if they don't really, like, you know, show up at the start of this year, what does it mean for the middle of the season? Because usually it's right at the top, then goes down a bit, then a bit of an uptick towards the end of the season. That's the OpTic trajectory over the last few years, and has pretty much remained similar for multiple years at this point. If they don't start super hot, what does that mean as time progresses? Now, this is, you know, interesting from Rambo Ray here. I don't even have an Instagram account yet, at least, so I have to go on one of these, like, Instagram viewer websites. But this is on Rambo's Instagram story, and as you guys can see here, so he is in the Envy headquarters. So usually the OpTic guys practice from the Hex quarters, I believe, but clearly they've decided to stop doing this. And they say, well, clearly the guys are here in the Envy headquarters, or, well, you know, what used to be the Envy headquarters. Now I guess Envy doesn't even really exist anymore, so it's kind of the OpTic headquarters, or the OpTic Envy, whatever. You guys have seen this facility before. I've seen Crimsix running around in a go-kart in here, like along some of these corridors, and it makes sense. It's seemingly a great facility, like no distractions, because in the Hex quarters, I imagine it gets, you know, people running around all the time. Probably not the best practice environment in theory. I think this is a bit further away for some of the guys to actually get to for the pros, but still, I think it makes sense they're going to be here. They've got all the trophies, all this type of stuff. Looks like a great environment. Now, in fairness, I believe it's been discussed in the past a couple of years ago, even before it was OpTic, right, and when it was just Envy from Crimsix, that the internet lines here were not particularly strong. And I think this was talked about by, you know, other players as well, that you would imagine a facility like that had great internet, but I think there was some issue with the lines or the connection or the ping or something that was basically meant that the players decided to practice from home a lot of the time rather than play from the facility. But that's almost 2 years ago now. You'd imagine that if that was a key problem, they have fixed that, solved the issue, and I think maybe Scump even mentions they're trying that Envy headquarters facility just because they're not, you know, maybe their Hex quarters for a few reasons isn't the optimal practice location anyway. But also I think the internet, right? Maybe Shotzzy was saying that the internet isn't quite so good at the Hex quarters as either it used to be, or they want to try out this other one. So there's some questions about that, right? Does it mean that because they're like, oh, you know, the internet isn't great at the Hex quarters, we got to try somewhere else? Is that a bad sign? Because if they were frying everyone in practice, they'd probably think, you know, who cares, right? So I don't know, you can read into that as you like, but I think in general it makes more sense for the guys to be there. Yes, there's a bit more of a drive to get there, I think, to the facility than the Hex quarters, but still, for a practice environment, that's got to be one of the best you're going to see in the entirety of the CDL. Now, Dashy goes on to say this. We're talking about practice, right? So the classic thing that, you know, pros like to say from time to time. Now, as we know, OpTic haven't had the greatest time in practice so far, we believe. The first few days, like, they were a couple of days behind at the start of the game because Scump and others, they were kind of away. They came back a little bit late. So the first few days of practice we saw from OpTic, they weren't quite as up to speed as some other teams. They were usually splitting maps with, you know, FaZe and Vegas and other teams like this. But since then, we don't really know where they are. The pros seem to think, or at least the coaches seem to think, that OpTic are pretty much a middle-of-the-road team. They are in that A tier, kind of along with Toronto, Minnesota, you know, Seattle Surge and Vegas Legion right now, but the coaches put them right at the bottom of that set of teams, and they're not really in the conversation with FaZe and Thieves right now for being potential favourites going into Major 1. But Dashy reckons, you know, we talk about practice, basically saying practice doesn't really matter all that much, which of course is true, and potentially responding to this from Paul X. Now, there's a couple of ways you can read into this tweet here from Dashy, but we saw this yesterday from Paul, right? I think we need to rerun at those coach rankings because damn son. So he's kind of saying that maybe practice does matter to a certain extent, because he's saying that at the start of the game, London were terrible, and you know, obviously they were bottom of the tier list that the pros put together, or the coaches put together, by a significant margin. And then they played two teams in practice, we believe, what, 2 days ago now? They played Folder and OpTic. So maybe Dashy saw this and saw Clayster tweet this and was like, you know, Clayster's kind of exposed here that London beat OpTic in this scrim is kind of the implication if you read between the lines here. And then maybe Dashy wants to respond to that and be like, you know, hang on a second, like, we talk about practice, who cares at the end of the day? We'll see you at LAN type of thing. Or at least we'll see you in the online qualifiers. And obviously this is a little more interesting as well, just because as we kind of go on to see here what the actual coach rankings were, that you guys might remember that clip we did a couple of weeks ago now where Dashy came out on stream and said that, you know, all the teams this year are good, there's no real standouts, there's no like really good team, no really bad team, apart from one team. Now, he didn't say who that team was, but we could read between the lines and say that, you know, okay, he didn't say outright, we don't know that he was talking about London, but it's quite likely, given the fact that all the coaches think that London's the worst team, and Dashy said that one team is especially bad, that he might well have been talking about London. So, you know, if that was the case, we don't really know, maybe he was talking about Guerrillas, Guerrillas, maybe he was talking about Florida, but that's pretty much the only extent that you can really have at the moment, and now potentially he's responding to Paul X saying what he said. It's a little bit spicy right between the pair of them going into the upcoming matches. However, depending on where you look, OpTic are actually much more favoured, and this often goes to show why that like the bets that people actually put on are very much like changes the outcome of the odds. So these are the odds over at Bet365 for basically like the way this works. If you put like $10 on for Thieves, let's say, and they get the first seed, you'll get your $60 like 6 times 10, and then you'll get your bet back basically. So that's kind of the way these numbers work here. I think it works a bit different in the US, like the way people see the numbers, or maybe it's the same, I don't know, changes per country. But this is kind of like the list of favourites. So this is the odds that particular team will get the #1 seed from the qualifiers. And obviously, as we look down the bottom, we've got Mutineers, Ravens. Like Vegas are interesting because Vegas like should be better than they are, but they do have a pretty hard schedule. I think for the Major 1 qualifiers, I think they certainly play like Thieves or FaZe. They play some of the good teams, so unlikely to go 4-0 and get the #1 seeds. But some of these teams, of course, will. So Bet365 reckon that OpTic, FaZe, Thieves are kind of the favourites, and then Toronto, then Surge, then Minnesota. So that makes sense. I know the coaches probably have OpTic lower down here, but interesting nonetheless. I think we have a referral link as well if you guys want to I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to check this out and have a look in greater detail, because I think that Bet365 are offering these odds and like some other ones as well this season. But yeah, that's what's going on there. So on this metric, OpTic are better than people have expected them to be so far. We'll see what actually plays out here in reality, because this weekend they have 2 matches. Their first match is not against Florida actually, that's on Sunday. Their first match is against Rokkr. So not an easy couple of matches, but certainly not the hardest you could have. Like they need to go at least 1-1 here, you would think. And Rokkr are going to be a tricky team to beat. I think they should be in a kind of similar category where OpTic are right now, but we don't really know, right? The game's in a bit of a shambolic state. The ARs are dominating, the M4 meta is everywhere as it stands, and then Mutineers have always proved a bit of a bogey team for OpTic. We'll see if that kind of maintains, because last season Dave Paddy was undefeated against Scump, but I think in his entire career Dave Paddy's undefeated against Scump. Unfortunately for Mutineers, they no longer have Chad Paddy, so we'll see how they actually go this season, because that's always been a fun rivalry to watch the last couple of years, with OpTic always struggling with Mutineers, and Rokkr, we'll see how good they are. But yeah, this weekend's going to be a weird one, right? Because we don't know if there's going to be game crashes. It could be an absolute state of affairs, right? It might not be particularly good to watch. There could be delays. All sorts could happen. And also, the game is still very fresh. So kind of at this point, anything can probably happen. But very much enjoy your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Just to finish out with this one, Brian Stats as well, I thought was kind of crazy. Highest career Grand Finals KD. Not the highest KD at an individual Grand Finals situation, but the highest KD on the whole. And Octane tops the list here. Now, in fairness, Octane's sample size is smaller than the likes of Formula, who has, 3,500 kills in Grand Finals. Scump has more than that, and Cellium at 1.08, which is remarkable for an SMG. Shotzzy's number 4, actually, but again, less Grand Finals appearances from him. And these are all the numbers over a 1.0. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.